You know, I'm old enough to remember back in the day when people were prepping for Y2K. Uh, I was a survivalist and a prepper before then, preparedness minded person, or whatever is the term nowadays. In fact, I remember kind of chuckling at everyone that was frantically stocking up at that time, thinking, well, I'm pretty much well stocked. I don't really need to be going out and doing all this panic buying like people were doing at the time. And when I think back to that time, hold on, let me get this tripod set up. When I think back during that time period, and really since then, we're talking a little over 20 years ago, most people in what I would say our community, they tend to focus on preparing for different scenarios, preparing for an invasion, and preparing for an EMP, and preparing for some natural disaster, a volcano, an earthquake, a hurricane, or preparing for the crashing of the economy or the dollar, or whatever it might be. But how many times have we stopped and actually thought about what would happen if all of this happens at the same time? How would we prepare if everything just all started crashing down at once? Most of us, I don't think, have ever really entertained that scenario. And I think that's why that we're all a little shell-shocked right now, because it just seems like, well, the whole world is just falling apart around us. And we have to stop and wonder how much of it is true, how much of it is something to worry about. Are we overthinking something? Are we missing what's really going on, or trying to read just too much into things? For those of you that have kind of just awakened to being more prepared, maybe over the last few months or even just a few years, you are waking up to preparedness at possibly the worst and the best time. Because it's a little overwhelming. And while we may not know why, is there a specific reason? Is there an overt effort being orchestrated to uh, just get us so confused and wore out that we kind of give up? I don't know. I don't know all the answers, but I do know that we are living in quite possibly the most unusual time period in history, when you start to see all the things that are going on around us. I started off with that little bumper sticker on my really filthy vehicle. I do wash it every week. We just have to drive a few miles down a very dirty dirt road to get out to the pavement every day, or whenever we leave. We went into town yesterday, in the little town that we go to do a little shopping. And in the parking lot, this young mother with a couple of children, they were both, one was an infant, one was a toddler, and she was parked right next to us in the parking lot. And just as we pulled in and were starting to get out, she was getting in her vehicle. And I heard her say, "Excuse me, sir." And I turned and looked to her, and I said, "Yes." I thought maybe she needed some help, maybe her car wasn't starting. And she said, "Can you explain to me what your bumper sticker means? What does that mean?" And so I did. I explained to her about the book, about what it means, about what the intention of the book was, and the fact that it was written so long ago, about the future. And she said, "How can I find out more about that?" And of course, I told her some places to go and how to learn more. But the whole conversation, what stood out to me was the look on her face. I don't believe that she was someone that was already well aware of everything that goes on, already well aware that there's, something wrong in the system, that there's something that's just not right, and that she's already actively preparing for it, and she's been awakened for many years. I think she was coming to realize as I was speaking to her that, wow, this sounds just like what's going on. The look in her face when I was explaining to her the premise of the book, that how the government would control every aspect of our lives, and they would monitor everything, and even down to the most natural thing of procreation, that the government controlled all of it. And you could tell the look in her eyes. She was really, man, the cogs were really starting to spin. And that's when she said, she goes, well, how can I find out more about this? That's kind of what's happening, I think, with a lot of people. When you walk in your house and you walk over and you flip the light switch on, you don't do, as you're walking up to it and as you flip it on, most people, there is no thought in your mind, well, I wonder if it's going to work. I hope this time. I hope this time when I flip that light switch on, it works. I hope. What, did it come on? Maybe it won't this time. Man, I don't know. You don't even think about it. It's like breathing. You just walk in and you flip the light switch. And you expect that every time that light is going to come on. There's never a thought. Once it comes on, oh, good. This time it worked. Finally, it worked. Oh, good. I got it right this time. Oh, I got lucky. The light worked this time. That's not what goes through our mind. In fact, usually nothing goes through our mind. We just flip the light switch on and we just keep moving along with our business. It's when the light doesn't come on that throws us off. We're a little bit shocked. There's a little bit of pause, like, what happened? Nothing worked. And we jiggle the light switch because that's probably going to help, right? And we're confused. There's a moment, right? Just a moment there of confusion of what, and it takes your brain just a second to think, oh, well, maybe the bulb burned out, right? Maybe it's the bulb. No, maybe it's the breaker. Maybe the breaker isn't working. Did I forget to pay the electric bill? Why isn't it working, right? This may happen very rapidly, but that's kind of what happens in our minds. Because we just expect, we assume that every time we flip that light switch on, that light comes out of that bulb above. And we never really have this thought in the back of our mind, well, I hope today the lights work. I hope they work today. I hope I don't have to deal with them not working today. Well, I wonder if I wake up in the morning, I wonder if the electricity is going to work today. Maybe if you live in California, that may be what's going through your mind. But most people, they just never give it a thought. And see, that's how it is in the system, in the government, in the world that we live in. Most people have just assumed that everything just works, right? They don't think about it. They don't think about where their food comes from. They don't think about, whether the light's going to work or not. They don't think about, putting gas into their car or buying the, clothes, or the kids need new shoes, or we have to go off to work and come home. And life just kind of functions. It's almost like an organic being, right? Like breathing and your heart beating and your liver functioning and your stomach digesting. Your brain, you don't think that, oh, now I got to digest this food. Oh, I got to keep beating, heart keep beating, heart keep beating, heart keep beating. We don't think that. It just functions. And most people think that our society is just that way. It just functions, right? And it doesn't really matter so much of who gets in power. I mean, if a Democrat gets in, maybe things kind of, the pendulum swings to the left. And then, if a Republican gets into office, maybe it swings back to the right, But in the end, it all still functions. Everything, that cog just keeps spinning, that wheel, it keeps moving, right? That's how the average person thinks about our whole system. And right now, while it's still functioning, it's starting to kind of crack and crumble and a little vibration, and some little things here and there aren't quite functioning like they're supposed to. Little things here and there are they're just off. It doesn't make sense. I mean, I've lived my whole life and I've never heard of a politician talking like this. I've lived my whole life and this has never happened before. Why, it's not supposed to work this way. Why is this going on? Why is there so much disinformation, misinformation, contradictory information, back and forth, nonstop, every day of some kind of different this, nonstop? We've got nearly half of the states that are going to the Supreme Court suing a few other states. And then we've got other states that are opposed to those states suing the states. And then we've got even some states are split up where the legislature has filed court briefings in support of Texas. And then we have other parts of the state and other parts of the government in the state filing briefings against the Texas. And then in Texas alone, they're kind of, got their own things going on. We've got a state rep in Texas that's trying to take away your right and ability to protect yourself within your own home. And then on the other hand, we have another state rep in Texas that's filing secession papers in the state house and wanting to bring it to a vote of the people. What? What's going on? We've got this belief for many years that quite possibly the greatest military threat in American history has been building its forces and has its crosshairs set on the United States. But there's not been a whole lot of tangible evidence to that. And yet, in the last few days, it appears that that's actually true, that there's forces building up on our northern border at the invitation of our greatest and most long-standing ally we've ever had. We have, obvious infiltration at nearly every level of government by this foreign power. A foreign power that I believe for the first time in American history is an actual real threat to us here at home. I can't ever think of any other time in American history where an enemy was really a big threat to us here on the homeland, like on our own soil. And yet this is a real threat, and not just a military threat. But when you add up the fact that they produce a vast majority of our goods, they own a massive amount of our debts, they own a lot of our infrastructure. I mean, there's even reports of them purchasing land next to a military base, some farm or ranch. It's strange, why are we allowing a foreign nation that is listed as not an ally purchase land surrounding one of our military bases? I mean, can you imagine that happening back in World War II? Nazi Germany says, "Oh well, while you're at it, we're gonna buy up all the land around Fort Hood, but that's okay. We're just farming." I mean, it's weird, right? And then, of course, there's all the stuff in the news that's just back and forth and fake news and disinformation and you're crazy and you're lying and this person's a threat and we're going to allow it to be spoken of on the media and in the social media. But this person, we have to ban them. We have to shadow ban them. We have to run them down. And then there's just the confusion and the insanity of the American people. It's like they don't even know their own identity anymore. They don't even know who they are or how they're born or anything. It's like we live in an absolute crazy, insane, dystopian world. It starts to feel that way at times. So how do we prepare for it? It's a good question. Maybe someday I'll figure it out. I think we just have to prepare like we do everything else. And we have to realize that the attacks, the breakdown, the things that would, spark a real apocalypse could happen on multiple fronts and not on any kind of singular point. And that's something that's different for most of us from the past of becoming more prepared. We're usually focused on well, this thing could happen and it could start this domino effect, or this thing over here could happen and it could start a domino effect. Well, what if there's 50 different things happening causing a domino effect all at the same time? That's different, but we still prepare in the same way. You still stock up on goods, you still condition your mind, strengthen it, prepare for combat in a way, manner of speaking. And I'm not talking about necessarily physical combat. I mean, you certainly should also prepare in that way, because that is a possibility, but a combat mindset. And I've talked about that in past videos. Preparing your heart, your spiritual life for the troubles and the things that are coming at you, preparing your family, building that family connection even stronger, because it's going to be put through the test as things get crazier and crazier. Build up your skills, learn new things, develop them, really put them to the test, and hone those skills on a much more regular basis than you probably would have in the past. Maybe just once a year, go on a little camping trip and learn things. No, you need to be doing it on a regular basis. These are the kind of things that you prepare for, and how you prepare for it. Another thing is building coalitions. I mean, we have to build coalitions. We have to build connectivity. We have to put aside some of our differences. You know, I'll just mention his name. I was watching Glenn Beck in the last couple of days, and he mentioned this. And he said, you know, the right has always they've always they've always separated themselves. They've always divided their own ranks. Well, this is a religious belief. This person believes this way religiously. This person believes this way religiously. This person's only focused on guns. This person's only focused on life and ending abortion. And this person's only focused on this. And we don't ever come together. And that has to stop also. We have to see that the people that we disagree with on our own sides are much more of an ally than the people that are trying to tear everything down. And then at the end, we're all left with, it feels like we're being gaslighted. Like, are we losing our own minds? Is all of this stuff being played out as some little game? You know, it's like a little board game, and there's all these possible scenarios, and then they all attack at once, right? Is that what it is? Is this just a game, and we're caught up in the midst of it, this psyop, and that everything is just being played out? I don't know. And if that's the case, then you wonder, well, then what really is going on? Because they certainly wouldn't be doing all this stuff just for fun. There would have to be some underlying reason, some deep motivation for creating all this just craziness. It leaves us confused. It leaves us questioning ourselves. It leaves us getting just tired of it all the time, and constantly in this waiting limbo, this suspenseful, and we're just waiting for it to happen, and then it never seems to happen. And that's probably one of the most deadly things that can happen to us, is that we're constantly on edge waiting for it to happen, and then when it does, we're not really ready. So my advice is, I'm working on it. I'm trying to figure out what the best advice is. Just continue to prep up. Continue to work on your skills, to really work on your mindset. And I think that right now is more important than ever. And it's always been important. But I think what we're seeing is not so much the dangers of an actual tangible scenario that would put us in danger, but we're seeing just a constant psyop played in our heads. And so maybe what's even more important than stacking cans of beans and bullets, it might be even more important to increase this and get your mind ready, because they're going to try everything they can to break it, and that's what they're doing right now. So When is it going to happen? What's going to happen? How's it going to happen? Who knows? No one knows. We just have to get ready for it because we know that something must be happening. There's too much. There's too much going on right now. There's too much activity. There's too many things happening at every possible front. Every time you turn on the news, every time you scroll through a news feed, every time you look at your social media, it's just this and then 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 this. And it's like, what in the world? It's like, some conspiracy theory just vomited all over the place, and it's just a little bit of everything. All I can say is that you just have to get as prepared as possible for any scenario. It doesn't matter. Just be prepared, because I think the odds are definitely in the favor of this continually happening and it just continually getting worse. And we may never see the big one thing that just snaps and it all comes crashing down. It may just be a lot of little, more and more and more and more and more cracks before it all comes crashing down. And that looks to be maybe the more likely scenario. All right, folks. Thank you all for watching. I'll catch you in the next video.